Well, thank you for having me again to discuss the the East Med region and potential even further escalation, unfortunately, than what we've seen since the horrific attacks on October 7th. But as we can, as the last few weeks prove, when we expect that we've reached rock bottom, it can always go even further down. Especially with the Israeli escalations and the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the political bureau of Hamas in Tehran, with all the symbolism around assassinating first the head of the political bureau of Hamas, but second also killing him in Tehran, and the second one is killing and targeting the second or third person in command within Hezbollah, Shukr, in Dahi, in retaliation to the rocket attack on Majdal Shams. And I want to start there. I want to start with the Majdal Shams attack and what it meant, for the people of Majdal Shams, but also what it meant for Syrians at large, given that Majdal Shams is a Syrian occupied territory, according to international law, because it is in the Golan Heights. And basically, from speaking to friends and colleagues in the city itself, there's a lot of frustration and anger at what happened. In the minds of the people of Majdal Shams, there is no doubt this was a Hezbollah attack, and that it was a Hezbollah rocket that actually killed their children playing in a soccer field. So this is not subject of debate, at least among the population of Majdal Shams. What is more of a subject of debate, whether it was intentional or not. And I'm going to say a bit why this is a discussion. As some of you know, Majdal Shams is a Druze majority town in the Golan Heights. And that has a lot of ramifications to the wider situation in Syria and in Lebanon. But I'm going to focus on Syria for a minute, especially with everything that has been happening in Suweida and the peaceful uprising there that has been ongoing since August 2023. So since August 2023, people of Suweida, which is another majority Druze city of Syria, have been protesting against the Assad regime on a daily basis. And only a few days we celebrated the 300th day of that peaceful uprising and of those peaceful protests. And a lot of people have seen that attack on Majdal Shams not necessarily as a mistake from Hezbollah, but as a message a double message to the Druze community. One, to the Druze community of Israel that serving in the Israeli army will have repercussions on you, but also a message to the Druze community in Syria, especially in Suweida, that this idea that Hezbollah and its allies, the Syrian regime, etc., do not target minorities is flawed, and that if needs be, they'll be more than happy to attack and violently crush this protest movement in Suweida. So there were those two messages that were received by the families of those killed in Majdal Shams, but also by the people of Suweida. And speaking to our colleagues, partners, etc., in Suweida, they are a lot of concerns that was that the real target was, sending that clear message to the people of Suweida that you're next, basically, and that the next rocket will not be in Majdal Shams, but will be in Suweida. The reason why also a lot of people confirm that is that in Hassan Nasrallah's speech the day after they confirmed that Shukr was assassinated or was killed in the Israeli strike, out of nowhere, Nasrallah spent about 15 minutes attacking the Syrian opposition and linking the Syrian opposition to Israel, and that any opposition movement in Syria or any protest movement against the regime is basically financed, linked to the quote unquote Zionist state and financed by that state too. So there seems to be a narrative that Hezbollah and the Syrian regime and Iran behind them that is trying to build, which is, painting or brush painting everyone as an Israeli agent, and therefore justifying, God forbids, a massacre in those areas that are currently protesting against, the Assad regime in Syria, but also some of the protests that happened in Iran itself, or some of the protests that happened in Iraq, etc. And hence the link between all of that. But that's really a Syria-centric perspective on the developments in the past few days, or even more of a Syria Druze-centric perspective on the events in the past few weeks. If we look at a wider Syria-centric perspective, there's a lot of fear that Syria will become kind of the territory where all the enemies basically settle their score. And we've seen that before. Whenever there was escalation between Iran and Israel, Iran will target US troops stationed in Syria, and Israel will target Iranian IRGC commanders or Iranian affiliated militias and Iranian affiliated militias in the Syrian territory. We've seen that with the assassination of the consul, with the killing of the consul of Iran in Damascus, that led to a retaliation from Iran directly on Israel. But we've seen that also in attacks in Deir ez-Zor and further down in the south along the Syrian-Jordanian border, along the 10th border crossing between Syria and Jordan and Iraq, or the area that is usually referred to as Area 55. So that's kind of the second major fear from a Syria perspective, is how would this escalation affect conflict dynamics in Syria, and would it intensify this Iranian, Israeli, American skirmishes on Syrian territory, and what would it target exactly? Third is really the safety of energy supplies to Syria itself. It's no secret that the majority of Syria's energy needs are being fulfilled by Iran at the moment via shipment of refined products and sometimes crude from Iran to Damascus. To Tartus and Latakia, the port cities, and sometimes by truck also, being trucked all the way down to Homs to the refinery. So would we see targeting some of those energy supply chains? Or vice versa, would we see Iranian targeting oil installations in the northeast of the country, or gas installations in the northeast of the country that are benefiting or being used mainly by the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are the dominant force in that area, supported by the international coalition led by the United States. So that's kind of the third, I would say, element, is the safety and security of energy supplies in Syria and to Syria. generally speaking. But if we want to expand this beyond just a Syria perspective and look at it from a regional perspective, there are also very interesting shifting dynamics, I guess, in the area, especially with the ever-changing Turkish role and the very, harsh stance that Turkey has taken against Israel and support they're providing to the Palestinians, political support for the moment, but we don't know if it's going to go beyond that. It's interesting that Turkey has invited the Palestinian chairperson, Mahmoud Abbas, to address the Turkish General Assembly, the Turkish Parliament, and also the severe degradation in the relationship between Turkey and Israel, leading all the way to Turkey joining the ICJ case against Israel, led by South Africa just yesterday. So Turkey seems to be moving away from what we usually have seen it play in such a conflict, which is a mediation role, to more of supporting one party to the conflict. Although they tried at the beginning to play a mediation role, but that was, that was not accepted by Israel. And the mediation role is now kind of only in the hands of the Qataris, the Egyptians, and the United States. And it remains to be seen now that those three countries gave an ultimatum to both parties, Israel and Hamas, to meet on August 15th. It'll be interesting to see if they'll show up, although there are, some confirmations coming from Israel that Israel will be there on August 15th. We haven't heard from Hamas. And that's where I would like to end my intervention. And it's really narrowing down on Hamas and also the changes that have happened within Hamas and the radicalization of this the further radicalization of this terrorist organization, and the kind of the messaging that they tried to send by appointing Yahya Sinwar as the new head of the political bureau after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. What we see are two things. First, that all decisions now will be made in Gaza, not in the West Bank, not outside Palestine. And two, the upper hand is for the military wing of Hamas, and therefore we've moved further away from a political movement that usually you can negotiate with, to a radical armed group that would make negotiation harder and less, and will make Israel less amenable to have a conversation. That's from Israel's perspective, but from Hamas's perspective, I think what they would say is, we had a chief negotiator, that was Ismail Haniyeh, and you, as in Israel, assassinated our chief negotiator. Therefore, you don't want to talk to politicians. What you really want to talk to are the hardliners, and therefore we're going to give you that. And that's Hamas's message behind appointing, I guess, I assume, behind appointing Sinwar. But that will also further complicate Hamas's relationship with the Arab world. Qatar, Egypt, were happy to welcome people like Khalid Mash'al, like Musa Abu Marzouk, like Ismail Haniyeh. I think it will be harder for them to welcome and work with the heavily radicalized armed wing of Hamas.